Welcome to another episode of Brilliantly Aware with myself, Corey Michelle, today. Our topic for today is push versus pull. What creates more? Now, this topic is so helpful. We'll say it that way. This topic is so helpful right now because if you don't know what you're doing with your energy, if you don't know if you're pulling or pushing energy, if you don't know what that is, you might not be creating as much ease in your life. You might be destroying things in your life. You might not be getting the results that you want in your life. And it's a lot harder when you don't have mastery over push and pull. So that's what we're going to dive in today. Welcome, welcome. So if you're joining us live, say hi. If you're joining us via the replay, go ahead and just push hashtag or type in, not push, hashtag replay. Let us know you're here and let me know what you think about all of this content and what you're receiving from it. It's always like, it's one of the most fun things for me to go, oh, look, people are getting what I'm throwing down here. So welcome, welcome. I'm always appreciative of your presence and your time and your energy as we have these conversations. So let's get started. All right, push, excuse me, push versus pull. What actually creates more? Hey, everybody. How you guys? Joining live. Hello, hello. What actually creates more, push or pull? Take a guess. Some of you guys might be already familiar with this concept. So let me know what actually creates more for you, pushing energy or pulling energy. Now there's one more we haven't talked about yet, but we will in just a moment. But which one creates more for you? Pushing, pulling, what is that? All right, so here's the thing. When you're pushing energy, you have to have some sort of perspective about whatever you're pushing energy about. Okay? Because pushing energy is when you're pushing energy out towards whatever you're pushing it to. It doesn't actually matter what it is. It's pushing it out. And when we're pushing energy, if you have somebody pushing energy upon you, how does that feel? Right? If somebody's trying to convince you of something, trying to sell you something, how does that actually feel? Right? Oftentimes it'll feel smothering. It will feel like, go away. You'll want to retreat. It's not a very inviting energy when you're pushing. It's kind of like wind. Wind is pushing you over. It's a little disheveling, right? Now, we all have the capacity to push energy, but it doesn't always create. Now, it's not to say to never push energy, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. It's more to say, pay attention to, is it creating what you actually want or not? Now, I wanted to bring in the context right today of, when you're having conversations with people, right? Right now, it's a very hot and tumultuous time for people. Everybody wants to prove their point. Everybody wants to be right. And when we want to be right, there's often a pushing energy at others. Especially if you're in a conversation, you're saying, you're wrong, I'm right, this is how it is. That's a push energy. There's no space for anything outside of what your perspective is. Okay. And when we're coming from that perspective, that's a very obvious agenda is, I'm right, you're wrong. You have nothing to contribute to here. You need to succumb to my perspective. Okay. That's a push energy. Now, if we flip it around and we do a pull energy, there might be more curiosity. There might be more invitation to a greater possibility. There might be more softness in your world versus that, I'm right, you're wrong. There might be an inquisitive sort of energy going on. Okay. And when we're aware of what is creating that push or what is creating that pull, then we can actually regulate it. We can go, okay, is this creating? Is this not creating? Is this making sense? So we have push, pull, and then the third one we actually have is more of a neutral zone. It's more of a spaciousness. Okay, you can push, you can pull, or you can sort of be a neutral space of what some might call possibility, like a neutral space, a fertile ground for possibility to be showing up. Okay, now let's dive into what is push? Like, where does push energy come from? Why do we push energy? Why do we push energy? Why in the world do we push energy? Because some people are like, well, why would I even want to push energy? I don't want to do that to anybody. And other people are like, I definitely want everybody to know that this is the right way and this is the only way. And we have a lot of that going on. I notice with many of my posts that are a little bit unpopular perspectives, they're alternative sort of viewpoints and perspectives of things. I get a lot of pushback of people saying, I'm wrong, or they're right and I'm wrong, right? And when that happens, there's this energy flood that comes to me and I can feel it. And when there's a fixed perspective of I'm right and you're wrong coming at me, like it comes at me almost like a dagger. I don't know how you guys perceive it, but that's how it feels to me. It's like an energetic dagger to my field, okay? Now, when we have an agenda, then of I'm right and you're wrong, let's just take that one for an example, then that's what we're doing is we're pushing a very sharp energy into somebody else's field. Okay. Now, it doesn't always have to be a sharp one. It could just be I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing else to say about this, right? But what happens is we know that one, right? We know I'm right, you're wrong. That's a pretty basic one. It's pretty out there. It's uncovered. It's not hidden. But let's actually look at the secret agendas that we have. Okay, so sometimes we have a secret agenda that's sort of running our energy, right? So if you have maybe a people-pleasing background, right? You've been entrained to people please, that people please has been a priority, make everybody happy, be the neutral zone, things like that, then you might be listen, you could actually be pushing or pulling. I'm looking at this right now. So you might be pushing or pulling, but if you have like, we need to make sure that nobody's arguing. You might push an energy of, don't create any conflict, right? And then other people are like, why are you trying to control me? Like, what are you doing? Why do you have this thing? And you're like, well, I'm just trying to create peace here. But you have the perspective, not of like, I'm right, you're wrong necessarily, but this is what I want because I can't deal with the other. I want peace. I want ease. I want to avoid conflict because I can't handle it. I don't want the conflict, right? So that's what we might call a secret agenda. You might not come out and say it right away, but if you look at why you're doing what you're doing or what you're pushing the energy for, you might discover it sort of in a layer underneath. Does that make sense? Okay. So we can ask yourself, one of the questions you can ask yourself is, what is my agenda here? What is my agenda here? I want this, okay? And you can see it. It's so clear when you ask yourself. And then you can also ask yourself, what's my secret agenda here? What's the agenda that I haven't been aware of that's running this energy? So when we have these secret agendas, then what happens is they'll be running the energy flows on a subconscious level, not a conscious level. Okay. Now, another sort of way to look at this with the secret agendas is if you have programming to be liked, right? So if you're like, I want to be liked, I don't want people to not like me, right? Then what'll happen is you'll push energy out there of like me, like me, like me. I'm going to do what I do so that people like me and so that people don't not like me. So that's another way to push energy out there. And have you ever been around somebody who's desperately seeking to be liked? Right? A lot of times, for me at least, their energy is like sort of needy or desperate. And it's because I'm feeling that push energy at me. It's like, please, please, please. But what's underneath that is the fear of people not liking them, right? The fear of people abandoning them, the fear of not being received, not being included, right? There's a secret agenda of fear running the show. Okay. Versus being able to be neutral about it and be like, well, people either like me or they don't. I don't really care. Right. That would be more of a neutral space of I'm just going to be me. Okay. Now let's talk about the other way, pulling energy. Now, what I like about pulling energy towards you, it's actually an invitation for everything to show up for you. Oh, let me say one more thing about push energy. If you're pushing energy in sales in your business, if you're pushing energy in a relationship, that might look like over giving. Pushing energy in sales might be like trying to convince somebody to buy something. Pushing energy in a relationship might look like over giving or trying to predict the needs of this person so that they like you, so that they want you more. So those sorts of things, over giving in the bedroom. overgiving financially. Those are all different ways of pushing energy. And what that does is it brings people who want to take from you. So when you're pushing energy out there, the kind of people that you'll attract in your life are people who want to take your energy. Okay. When you can actually allow the energy to come to you, like a pull energy or a flow, which I'll reframe that in a minute, or from a neutral sort of space, then you'll actually get people who want to dance with you. Okay, whether that's with your business or with partners in life, friends on social media or whatever. And there won't be nearly as much of a reaction from you to try to defend yourself. Okay, so in this pull energy, what I actually sort of like even more than a pull is a flow to you. So years and years ago, I was working with somebody with some energetic stuff. It was probably like 15 years ago. And I had this perspective that I needed to go get everything, which is a push energy. I need to make the contact. I need to go get everything. It was all up to me. Everything was up to me. And what she recommended was turn that energy around so it's actually flowing to you. So it's more like a pull, like you become the vortex where everything is always coming to you. And I loved that so much. And it was so much lighter that I just literally flipped my energy from a going out to get. It's like a hustle, got to get it. You're the only one that's responsible for this, which is like a disconnect from who you really are and what capacities you really have to create, and allowing the universe to create with you, to an inward flow and the knowing that everything is always coming to me. So I know I'll tune into a possibility or a potential. I say yes to it, and I know that it's coming to me. So there's an inward sort of flow, but I don't actually have to pull that energy. I actually don't really have to do anything with it. I just know that it's coming to me. So you can reverse the flow. Is it flowing away from you, or do you feel like you're chasing stuff all the time, or are things coming to you? Now, this works really well with people too, right? So if you have the push energy on, so you're chasing everything out there, right? Then a lot of times things are going away from you, right? Or things have to combat you. They have to push back. Or you can turn it around and have everything just flow to you. So just notice the difference of the push energy, right? And the pull or the flow energy. This one feels so much better, doesn't it? Right? So you can actually just ask your field right now, how much are you pushing, right? And how much are you flowing to you? And you can tell me in the chat. Right? What are your percentages? What are you aware of right now? Okay, so if we look at those two things, we go, okay, I can push, and sometimes there might need to be a push, right? Maybe there's a burglar at your door, right? You might want to push a lot of energy at that person, right? Because that's going to give them a big wave of go away. You're not welcome here, right? Pulling that energy in is very much an invitation. So when you're flowing that energy in, I kind of think like the image that comes in my mind is, have you ever been to a sushi place that has the little water and it has little boats with sushi on it that's like going around in a circle, and you just pick up the sushis, right? That's kind of how I see the flow, is like it's all everything that you could possibly imagine is always coming to you. And you can just pick it up off of the sushi little boat river thing, whatever that's called. I don't even know what it's called, right? Sometimes it's not on a water. I went to one that was on water, and that was pretty cool. So just pick out what you want, right? That means you know that how the universe works for you is that everything is always just coming to you, okay? Now, I said, oh my God, so crunchy to see how overgiving is pushing. Yeah, overgiving is pushing. And you can see, just ask yourself, what's my agenda or what's my secret agenda? Okay, and then you can see that for yourself. You can see where your subconscious is running the show. Okay, now, when you start to become, good, or start to have some mastery with the push and the pull, or the push and the flow, and the neutral zone, then you can really work the energetics of your reality. When you're allowing that flow to come to you, so in your creations, in people, in clients, right? What you're doing is what you're saying is, I'm aware that this is available to me, and I'm saying yes to that. And when you do that, it actually turns on the flow to come to you. Okay. And there's really nothing else to do about it except pay attention. And when little awarenesses and actions start to come into your field, you just say yes to them. Okay, you say yes to them. You take that action. You follow that whisper. Like I was talking to somebody just online. She said, is anybody getting the hit to leave California? And I was like, yeah, I got that hit 4 years ago. I got that hit to leave California 4 years ago. And when I got that hit, I knew, I got that hit, and when I paid attention to it, I could see much of what is happening right now. I saw rioting, I saw closure, I saw the ability or the inability to leave the country. I also saw that it was going to be extraordinarily disruptive between people. I saw so much of what is happening right now. Okay. And I knew, I said, okay, it said, leave the country. I said, okay, I don't know how that's going to happen, but yes. And then from there, it was like one thing after another led me to being able to live in a different country. Okay. Now, living in a different country isn't the easiest thing to do. There are many, many, many steps involved. There are many awarenesses I had to follow with that, but that would be being in your flow, because you say yes to a potential, and then you allow yourself to follow the awarenesses that actualize it. Okay. So that's where you're in the flow versus pushing. Now, if I would have tried to push to get out and live in a different country, it wouldn't have worked. I probably would have made choices that were crunchy, that didn't really work out, that were forcing a lot of hustle or action or intention of like, I've got to intend that this happens. That is a push energy. When you just have it clear and spacious in you that you're saying yes to that, there's nothing else to push. There's nothing to push at all, right? It literally, you're saying yes to it and it flows to you. Now, being in this flow, this pull sort of energy, where everything's coming to you in conversations means, we just talk about social media because there's so much raw on social media. Everybody wants to be right. So what I've noticed for myself is where I get to see a comment or engage with something or not engage with something and go, where is it that I feel like I'm right? Right? What is my agenda here? What is my agenda for posting this? What is my agenda for saying this? Right? And then you can take it to the next level and go, okay, what will this actually create by putting this out here? Okay. And you can tune in to those awarenesses that come through. And if you don't feel like you're getting awarenesses, all you need to do is start practicing and paying attention, because they're coming through nonstop all the time. It's just, have you attuned yourself to those awarenesses coming in? Okay. And when you start going, oh, what will this create? And you go, no, that doesn't feel good. All right, let's pull back a little bit. Then you're actually working with your energy field and not trying to push out an agenda. Now, you might want to push out an agenda, but when we do that, sometimes it doesn't turn out so good. Why? Because people can feel the disruption in their field based on your agenda. When we can come from either a flow allowance, sort of bringing in energy, or a neutral space, then there's a little bit different sort of energy that gets created out there. So when I put something out there where I actually have no agenda on it, in terms of, I don't care if anybody buys into it, I don't care if anybody believes it, I don't care if anybody agrees with what I'm saying, then I'm coming from a neutral space. And when I'm asking, hey, what will this create? And I get this expansive sort of energy, I'm like, okay. Now, many times, actually, I would say 99.9% of times, I know that it might disrupt people's fields. But because I don't have an agenda, I'm not trying to get them to believe what I say. I'm just saying, hey, here's what this is. Then the trigger is on their end. So it's going to bring up whatever it brings up for them, but it actually doesn't have anything to do with me. If I have an agenda about it, then it's between them and me. So that's one way to be able to get your voice out there, your awareness, being a visionary, being a leader, being able to speak or post, however you're doing it, what is congruent for you, what will create more without an attachment to a trigger between you and somebody else. Okay. But that takes practice in not being attached to their response. Okay. And when you can start to do that, you'll have a more powerful and greater presence with your voice, with your whatever it is that you're communicating. All right. Now, a couple of ways to know if you are pushing or have an agenda. If you want to justify, like anytime you go, yeah, but justification, then you have an agenda. If you want to prove yourself, right, you have an agenda. Okay. Now, it's not wrong to have an agenda, but with energetic mastery and being aware and being a visionary leader, you want to start knowing when you have an agenda, when you're actually in that neutral space, and when you have a projected perspective that you want to get out there, but you might not want to be attached to the triggers that might happen within people. And what I've noticed for myself is I've been all over the spectrum with this and practicing using my voice and practicing putting this out there, right? Whatever this is, like especially some of my unpopular points of view, my unpopular perspectives. And most of the time, they're just future perspectives. They're perspectives that haven't sunken in or even available to the mainstream yet. They are in the future. Because what I know about myself is I'm a futurist. So I'm always tapping in 6, 12 months ahead of time, sometimes even further than that. So when I'm bringing things through, they're outside of most people's comfort zone, most people's energetic bubble. So it can be disruptive. So me, as the visionary I am a disruptor. But because I know that about myself, then I know that people will naturally be triggered by the new energy I bring to the table, but also by the new information I bring to the table. And when I was able, over the last number of years, I've been practicing this, of getting unattached and being able to present information without an agenda, trying to convince people, trying to save people, trying to wake them up, trying to do anything, because trying is a push energy. Then what happens is they'll have whatever they have, but it's able to resolve itself. Because what's happening is when you have an agenda and you're pushing it out there, right, then it's between the two of you. Then it's personal on an energetic level. It's between the two of you. And then something has to be resolved between the two of you in the field. But when I put it out there, or you guys put it out there, and you don't have an agenda with it, you're just saying, okay, we're going to put this information out there, then the trigger is actually within them and it can be resolved. It can naturally be resolved within them. I don't know how it's going to resolve. They might choose whatever they choose. They might choose to unfriend me. They might choose to allow that to resolve within themselves. They might choose to fight me on something, whatever, but that's on them because I don't have an agenda over here. Okay. And then Michelle's also saying, if you say because, that's also a push agenda, energy, justifications, proving, because, things like that. When your awareness comes through, when you're in that sort of flow with yourself, there is no justification. It just is. It just is your reality. You don't need to justify yourself, but we've been so entrained to justify ourselves, to prove ourselves, to make it real and solid. And this is where, when we start to, like for me personally, we'll just speak to that. I've got so many awarenesses that come in that are not what everybody is saying. They are completely different. Like I've got not even points of view. They're just perspectives, ways of looking at certain things that are going on right now that if I put it out there, it's not going to be good because it's not time yet, right? It's not time yet because not enough people can actually receive it. There will be a time where I present some of this information and it will be received even more. But the thing is, like, I can't back my future visions by science. I can't back it with proof. I can't justify it in any way. It's a flippant awareness that's coming through. And if I spend my energy and time trying to prove my awarenesses, then I'm being distracted by the 3D reality, because what happens is we know, we create, we engage, and then it actualizes. That's how creation works. And that's what we're going to go into very deeply in the Energetic Mastery course that I'll be launching very soon, soonish, right? Is how do you know, then engage, and then see? So much of the time, this reality, we want to see it first, and then that makes it real and true, but that's not how creation works. It's backwards, right? So if you're pushing and you've got an agenda, right, then oftentimes we're sort of in the backwards way of creating. You got to see, look at this. See, I got to prove myself to you guys. I got to be seen to make myself valuable and valid. But it's opposite. It's the knowing from the awareness, the engagement with it, and then you will see it in the 3D. Oh, it's so cool. Thank you guys so much for receiving this conversation today. Is there anything popping for you with this? Is there any awarenesses that are coming through for you? Okay, now one of the things with people is when you are having that flow energy, that's where really juicy conversations come from. That's where a pure space of curiosity can be. You cannot have a pure space of curiosity when you also have a strong agenda going on as well, because you'll be pushing energy and there's just no room for that back and forth, right? To have any good conversation, any like productive conversation where you're actually present and receiving from the other person and vice versa, you have to be in the neutral space, okay? Because that neutral space allows the movement between the two people or multiple people to actually happen, okay? Otherwise, we have an agenda, and most of the time, a lot of the time, that agenda comes with, I've got to prove myself, and deep-seated conditioning to, I've got to prove myself, I've got to prove my point, I need the backup, I need this, because that's what makes me real, that's what makes me solid, that's what makes me valuable, that's what allows me to be seen, right? Otherwise, I'll be discredited. Otherwise, I won't be seen. Otherwise, I'll be made a fool of. Otherwise, right? And we can see all of that in our conditioning when you start to look at it. Hopefully this gives you a little bit more perspective on the push and the pull, and also the neutral energy, turning on your flow to start coming to you. Everything comes to you. What if everything is that's already available? Everything that you're aware of is already available. It is already coming to you. And the push energy actually pushes it away. It makes it harder to get to. Awesome, you guys. So I'm Corey Michelle. For all the new people in the group, welcome to Brilliantly Aware for Visionary Leaders. I'm so happy you're here and engaging with this conversation as we go into creating the new earth, the new reality, and bringing through what you know is possible and available in your life and the world. All right. Thanks, you guys, so much. We'll see you next week. We broadcast every week live, same time, same place. Enjoy. And I wonder, let me know what starts to show up for you in your new awarenesses with pushing versus pulling and being neutral. All right, you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.